Good morning, everyone. So, I am Janicel O. Fernandez. I will be the one to present education in ancient Greek and Roman civilization. So, with that, we have to proceed to our topic for this morning. So, let's talk about our webinar etiquette. So, you have to be on time, mute your microphone, listen attentively. If you have questions, use the chat box. Careful of what you wear when you're on a video conference from home. Check your internet connection, headset, microphone, and camera. Stay focused and avoid multitasking. Prepare for backup plan. So with that, let's proceed. So today we have our topic. I prepared to you here the table of contents to you to be guided. So we have first here the historical overview. So let's talk about the education in ancient Greece, then the Roman education, then another one the Greek education, so Spartan education, and then the Athens education, so the difference between the two. Then the third one is what we call the sophist. So we have here the three sophists, the Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato. So the fourth one is the Roman education, ancient Roman education, then later Roman education. So we have here the session outline of our topic. So now let's proceed. First, let's talk about the historical overview from ancient Greek. So education in ancient Greece. The ancient Greeks ruled the world of politics and education when other communities of the world were still roaming in the Stone Age. So what sets us apart? So from Old Greek period, so it was subdivided into Homeric age, and then the historic age includes the Spartan and the Athenian education. Then later on, the New Greek period. So it starts after, obviously, from the old period. So we have also here the Greek culture. So we have here the formal education, then the informal education. So when we say informal education, it attained through school or by hired tutor, while the informal education is provided by an unpaid teacher in non-public setting. So a good example for this informal education is our mother. So they are the one who is unpaid to teach us from basic learning like um, cooking, cleaning. So that's it. Some of example of informal education. So now let's proceed to the second part of our topic, which is the Greek education. So let's talk about here the history, teaching methods, and then its aim of education. So in ancient Greece, there are the best known city-states. So we have here the Spartan education, then the Athenian education. So the question is, Athens and Sparta united? So the answer is not exactly, because recognize the relationship between the individual and the community. So polis, it is a furnished education aims. So Peloponnese War from 431 to 404, it is the turning point on the demise of the polis. So that's it. They are not united. So let's talk about the Spartan education. So Spartan education, also called Lacedaemon, the capital of Laconia, was at one time the most powerful city-state of an ancient Greece. It is famous for military power and its loyal soldiers. The greatest honor that could come to a Spartan was to die in defense of the country. So here are the Spartan virtues. So one is the endurance, a scorn of luxuries, and unyielding firmness. So next, so there are three classes that people belong in ancient Greece. So we have here the Dorians, which is the ruling class of Sparta, had full rights of citizenship. Then the other one is what we call the Helots. These are the enslaved Greeks. Then the third one is what we call the Peroshi, not citizen but lives in Sparta as free people. So we have also here the aims of education. First is the military. It makes every citizen invisible in war, possessing physical perfection and complete obedience to the state, and to develop a people equal in military skill and absolutely devoted and loyal to the state. Then one of the aims of education was discipline, instilled to develop conformity and obedience, courage, strength, cunning, endurance, and patriotic efficiency. So next, oh sorry. Next, we have here the methods of instruction. So we have 5 methods of instructions under Spartan education. First is the training, participating, testing, and discipline, and motivation. Just like I said, so Spartan was more on training, so they are prepared for battles. They are not uh, they are not mind on the intellectual learning. So education in Spartan was training, not school instruction. Then the other one, participating, it is learned by doing. So there were no books. So they learned it by doing. So they are more in experiences. So the more experiences they have, so the more learning they have. So the third one is the testing. This is not for memory but for moral life and endurance. So the fourth one is the discipline. There were corporal punishment for moral delinquency and lack of alertness. Then the fifth one is the motivation, enhanced by rivalry, emulation of great men and great deeds, and most of all, fear of public disposal. So we have also here the types of education. So physical education, moral training, military education, intellectual training. So when you say physical education, this is focuses on strongness or the strength. Just like I said, the Spartan was there are more mind on strength and on knowledge. So in physical education, so rigid to make Spartans strong, especially in combat. So they're preparing their people in battles. So next is the moral training. It was taken in connection with group living. Stealing was not a crime, but if caught, the thief was severely punished. So on the Spartan time, so it's okay to steal, but when you are caught, so severely punished was taken into action. Then the third one is the military education. All the skills in combat known were learned to the utmost. So um, in any forms like how they fought in the battle. So they are um um more about they are okay to use any kinds of forms of um, in defense during battle. So we have also here the intellectual training. A little intellectual training, just enough to understand the laws of Lycurgus and some Homeric writings. So we have also here the vocation education. No vocation education because the slaves called Halord or Peroshi, the dwellers around, who numbered at most 30 to 1 Spartan, did all the non-skilled labor for the Spartans. The Helots were not considered as citizens. So moral training, it was taken in connection with group living. Stealing was not again a crime, but if caught, the thief was severely punished. The another one, the gymnastic education. So with this, it was all to girls to make them strong to bear children. So the role of the girls or the women in Spartan time was to be strong, so that they can be a mother, or they can bear a child of their own. So what mamantay doctor at that time, so self-service pa ang mother, so they are the one who will just bear their own children. So the most outstanding contribution to the education of the Spartan education was the development of patriotism, discipline, and military. So these three keywords was their development in education. Then the second one under the Greek education was the Athenian education. So we have here ancient Athens was the leading cultural center of Greek world. Many of the most gifted writers of Greece lived there. So they wrote the works of drama, history, lyric poetry, and philosophy that have influenced literature up to the present. So the type of government under the Athenian culture. So the government of ancient Athens provided an example of democracy that has inspired lawmakers ever since. So ang Athens pala ang unang gumamit ng democracy, this kind of in government. Next, the council, 500 citizens chosen each year. So they call them assembly. So Athenians social structure. So we have here citizen or freemen, metics, and then the other one is slaves. So we have, when we say citizen or freemen, there are full citizens living in Athens. Metics, not born in Athens but live there. Slaves, no rights or no freedom. So in other words, when you are a slaves of Athenian, so you have no freedom or no rights. So the lifestyle or values in Athens. So they are very creative city-state with lots of opportunities for males. Valued theater, art, philosophy, and science. And they also believe in good life. So Athenian military, strong navy. At the age of 18, all boys receive 1 to 2 years of military training. So in that young age, so they receive their military training already. So boys in the time of Athens, they started school at the age of 7. So they focuses on reading, writing, mathematics, gymnastics, poetry, and public. These are all just for boys. Just like I said, na ang girls dili pa sila they're known to bear children only. So on the time of Athens and Sparta, there are all focuses throughout in men or boys. So the women in Athens, so they are not expected to be a good wives. They're expected to be a good wives and a mothers. They are not valued and respected. So just like what I've said a while ago, in Athens and in Spartan's time, there are more focuses on males than females. So did not formally attend schools, rarely left the house, responsible for weaving and domestic arts. So in short, they have little freedom. So the aims of education in Athens. So first, good citizen. You must be a good citizen. It was the foremost aim of Athenian education. The next, individual excellence. So there was a stress on individual excellence in wisdom, beauty, and strength for public usefulness. So as you can observe sa mga movies na mga Athenian peoples are more on they are observably beautiful, they are strong, so they wear those kinds of adorning on their body or their body parts. So human capacities, this is also aim for education in Athens. Athens was the first state where there was freedom to develop to develop all human capacities. So many-sided development are other of these human capacities. So we have also here the types of education. So civic training, physical education, moral training, intellectual education. So in civic training, it was dominant aim because of the desire to serve the state. Another one is the physical education. It was not taking not to develop the strength but to develop the grace and harmony of the body. So, di ba sa Spartan kay they are in physical education. So, they are trained to become strong. While in Athens, they develop the strength to develop the grace and harmony of the body, not just for to make them strong. In moral, and another one is moral training. It was an emphasis on the virtues of Homeric heroes as well as those for service of the state. Then another one is the intellectual education. It was needed in the participation in the assembly and in the discussion in the marketplace. So, in this sense, that Athenian peoples are found on debate. So, the more you are intellectually educated, so you are publicly discussed on the marketplace. So, Apollonian ideal. So, with this includes the art, music, poetry, and dancing. We're taking not to pleasure and to entertain, but for the ennobling influence in the intellectual and moral and good cultural training. So, we have here the Greek educational theorists. So, manatong si Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So, si Socrates, his ultimate the ultimate goal of education is truth, while Plato, the ultimate goal is justice. Si Aristotle is happiness. Si Socrates, truth, Plato, justice, and then Aristotle, happiness. So nga rin na-judge ko ni Aristotle, no, kay more on happiness. So, di lang siya, good vibes ka nun ni Aristotle. Charot. So, we have here the differences between Spartan and Athens on the basis of education. So, just like said katong sa sequences of our topic, so, discuss ko sa differences. So, we have here the differences between the Spartan and the Athens. So, Spartans, autocratic approach. While Athens, just like what I've said, sila ang first city-state nga nag-conduct of democracy. So sila ang pinakaunang pioneering in democracy law. So, they give training, as a Spartan, they give training about war only. While in Athens, they gave training about both peace and war. So, just like what I said, sa physical education, they are not just focusing on strength, but they are developing harmony and grace of the body. While the Spartan reasoning was not allowed, but in Athens, reasoning was allowed. Just like atong ganina nga, more on debate, diba? So, kuan, sayo na rin nila pa-express on their own thoughts. Then Spartans, aim of education was to produce competent warriors. So, kay ganina sa Spartans, more on kanang a war or kanang ila you prepare yourself for battle. But in Athens, aim of education was complete personality development. So, iya jud pagkatao mismo ang iyang aim sa education. And in Spartan, training for war was started at the early age. So, bata pa, nagsugod ang mga Spartan. While in Athens, formal education started from 7 years age. Then, Spartan less advanced system, while Athens is more advanced system, wherein they are kanang practicing advanced system in terms of leading their city-state. Then, in Spartan, focus in physical training. So, just like I said, they're more on like focusing in to become strong. while in Athens, focused on mind training. So the more you are intellectually um, adverse, so you are more capable in debate or kanang moral. Mas bright o kanang mas kuan sa ila kanang kung hanas ka makig debate, so you are intellectually um, idolized. So in Spartan again, so Spartan gives women equal chances of education, but in Athens, the education was only for boys. So much likely there are in those times there are some kind of bias between the two era, the Spartan and then the Athens. So I think with this sense nga more focus is sa Sparta ang women, so they are more respected or they give equal chances to education. So outstanding contribution to education of Athens, so the Olympic Games and the free development of all human capacities. So di ba nga rin nag-start ang itawag natong Olympic Games, which we actually practice up to now, up to present. Then the third agenda of our topic for this morning is the sophists. So kinsa ning mga sophists nga gitawag nato? So we have here the Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. So let's learn them one by one. So first we will discuss the Socrates life. So Socrates, he was born in 460 BC in the outside of Athens. So dili siya taga-Athenian. The most familiar figure in Athens, but he was the most familiar figure in Athens. He was the son of Sophronicus, a sculptor. He was often found in contemplation and a discussion with young about moral and politics. So, and he was considered as wisest in Athens. So, Socratic teaching learning methods. So, see, Socrates, its aims of education was to dispel error and to discover truth. Just like what I've said a while ago, and the ultimate goal of Socrates was truth. Then the view about knowledge, so it is necessary for free action, right action, and for art of living. So it can be obtained objectively through the process of thinking and conversation. And then the last one, it can obtain subjectively by reflection and classification of one's own experiences. So students, according to Socrates, the students are not a passive recipient of knowledge. The students should try to find out the truth of knowledge through discussion, conversation, and inquiry or research work as far as possible. Then the learning method under Socratic teaching learning method. So dialect method of inquiry, or what we call the Socratic method. Unsa ni siya? So negative method of hypothesis elimination, in that better hypotheses are found by steadily identifying and eliminating those that lead to contradiction. It was designed to force one's own belief and the validity of such beliefs. Then the next one is the Plato's life. So Plato's life is from 348 to 427 BC. So he was nicknamed by Aristotle. So nag-nickname ra ni Plato kasi Aristotle, wherein there are friends. Yes, there are friends, and Aristotle was his mentor. Son of the oldest and most elite or best Athenian family. So dato din si Plato. And best and most renowned were famous ni kaya si Plato after the death of Socrates. So siya ni Puli. Music, logic, debate, math, poetry. So he is best in that kind in music, logic, debate, math, and poetry. He is attractive and made his mark as a wrestler. Distinguished himself in 3 battles and won a prize of bravery. Left Athens after the execution of Socrates and worked for 12 years. Famous educational thinker and Greek philosopher, he wrote the book The Republic. So, Plato's teaching learning methods. So, the aims, just like akong ganiha, the aims of education of Plato's, welfare of both individual and society. So, to. And then view about knowledge, he was rationalist, the person who believed in wisdom. He gives immense importance to education. According to him, knowledge is fixed and ideas are changeable. So, students, according to Plato, students are active learners. So, learning method of Plato's, so free man. So, according to Plato, knowledge which is required under compulsion rather detains no hold on the minds of the bearers. Plato believed that there was no compulsion in teaching and it should be more of an amusement. Plato says all elements of instruction should be presented to the mind of the childhood, nor, however, under any notion of forcing. He says that it is better for a learner to be free man and not to stages of education. First stage. So, from 0 to 6, started from the age of 7, and before these children should stay with their mothers for moral of education and gender should be allowed to place with each other. Then the second stage, from 7 to 17 years old, the content of education is comprises gymnastic, literature, music, elementary mathematics. Then the third stage, from 18 to 20 years old, meant for cadetship and is related to physical and military training. The youth are brought into the stage of the battle. Fourth stage, from 20 to 30 years old, advanced mathematics and the relation to reality are taught. Undergo mathematical training preparatory to dialect. Fifth stage, 30 to 34 years old, restricted to study dialect because individuals should be mature enough to carry on the study of dialect, especially about ultimate principle of reality. Then the last one, the sixth stage, 35 to 50 years of age. Individual is ready as a philosopher or a ruler to return to practical life, to take command in war and hold such offices of state as befits him. So, the third one is the Aristotle life. Born in 322 BC at Stagira. His father was a physician and a friend of the king of Macedonia. He spent most of his boyhood at royal court. At the age of 18, he was sent to study Plato's academy in Athens. He was very intelligent, so Plato called him the mind of the school. He taught Alexander the Great at the age of 19, became a king. He then returned to Athens and set up a new school by the money received from Alexander the Great. So, Aristotle teachings learning methods. So, just like what I've said, the aims of education of Aristotle was the attainment of happiness or goodness in life. So, view about knowledge define education as creation of a sound mind in a sound body. Curriculum discuss the hierarchy of the subjects to be taught. Gymnastics, so they develop the spirit of sportsmanship and to develop the good habits of the control, position, and appetite. Mathematics, to develop the power of deductive reasoning. Importance of the physics and astronomy give with practical training in citizenship. Learning methods. So, learning method of Aristotle was inductive and deductive methods on Sanisia. Seek truth in objective facts of nature and social life. First, to formulate the logic of procedures, then he applied these methods for the objectives and subjective studies. Then the last one is the Roman educational system. So we talk about the history, its aim of education, and the method of teaching. So two great divisions under this is the ancient Roman education and the later Roman education. So first let's talk about the ancient Roman education. So its history. So it started from 753 BC, controlled most of the Italian peninsula. 100 AD, the Roman Empire covered about half of Europe, much of the Middle East, and the north of Coast Africa. 476 AD, warlike Germany, tribes overthrew the last Roman emperor. System of law and government, it was bounded together because the Roman Empire spoke many languages and followed many different customs and religions. This remarkable achievement was aroused interest and admiration from ancient times up to the present. So, aims of education under Roman. So, practical training for military, emphasized the practical training for military life and citizenship acquired through memorization of the laws of the 12 tables and the aristocratical tradition of Rome. Another one is the formal schooling. It was not until Romans succumbed to the cultural influence of the Greeks that they began to provide formal schooling. Literature. So this is the lowest Roman school was the ludus or the school of literature, where the elements of reading, writing, and arithmetic were taught. Good citizens. Moral, religious, civic, and political. To produce good citizens who knew how to exercise their rights, fulfill their duties and obligations, and require virtues such as piety, obedience, manliness, courage, bravery, industry, honesty, prudence, earnestness, sobriety, dignity, fortitude, and gravity. So, politics. Romans were trained to be participative and wise in politics. So we have also here the types of education. We have here the physical and military training, civic training, moral training, and religious training. When we say physical and military training, imperative for soldiers who would be conquerors in war. Then civic training, to make men know their rights and obligations to the states. Civic training was also exercised so that they could participate wisely in politics. The good citizen must be obedient, frugal, and honest. Moral training, for the development of moral virtues. Religious training, instead of to moral and civic training, children were trained in the religious ceremonies and usages. So then the last one is the vocational training. Livelihood was very important to the Romans. So agency of education. So we have here the grammaticus, rhetorical schools, and then home. In grammaticus, school taught grammar, literature, and the art of speaking correctly. Rhetorical schools, which gave a broad training in language and literature and in declamation as preparation for for management public and private affairs, which required the art of oratory. Home. Children of all sexes learned the rudiment of knowledge, morals, and religion at home. So it's all started from home. So education for girls and boys under the Roman educational system. So girls did not go to school. Then rich families receive an education, but this was done at home. Taught to run a good household and how to be a good wife and in preparation for the time they got married. Part of the education was music, sewing, and the competent running of a kitchen. While boys, they are shops and farms with their fathers. Military camp was the place where the boys learned the art of warfare, like the use of battle axe, lance, and chariot. Forum was the place where boys learned the science of politics and governance. Agencies of education. Ballad and songs. So glorify the traits esteemed by the Romans, the laws of the 12 tables, religious ceremonies and usage, physical and military exercises, domestic chores, and vocation. Influential teachers. So we have here two influential teachers. Cicero provide the ideal of the education of the Middle Ages. Educational ideas were put in his orator not only as a well-rounded man of affairs but as a man of integrity in character, while Quintilian stressed memory and used memorizing as main basis for motivation. He made use of plays and games for relaxation and to stimulate interest and consideration with the individual. Then methods of instruction. So we have here memorization. They are found on memorization, direction, imitation, and discipline. So these are the methods of instructions of the early Roman education. So the boys imitated their fathers and the girls their mothers. Reading, writing, and counting were learned by imitation from parents too, or teachers rather. They were also urged to imitate the heroes whose exploits were related to them. When training was carried at home, in the father's shop or farm, in the forum, an open marketplace or the center of the Roman government, or in the military camp, the learner did not pay any fee, but when they entered the private schools put up by the Greeks, they had to pay. So the next one is the later Roman education work. So history of this, the early republic, late republic, empire, internal city. So in early republic, domestic education by parents, especially the paterfamilias. Agricultural, domestic, moral, and civil skills for both boys and girls. No strong national literature. Spurius Carvillus, or first fee-paying ludus. In late Republic 300 BC, emergence of more formal tier school by ability lesson age. Greek influence strengthens with private tutors, literatures, higher education. Yet Roman reject Greek music, athletics in favor of oratory, law, and practical skills. Empire. Abundance of private schools, more international student body. Eternal city. It is also one of the world's most beautiful cities. Its historic center, standing on 7 hills. Its ancient monuments and magnificent churches and places stand as reminders of Rome's past glory. So, the aims of education under Roman educational system is oratical, civic, Cicero, Tacitus, and Quintilian. So oratical, the verbanus or morally virtuous, gifted in oratory was the educated man. The educated man must have the moral character, broad knowledge, and ability to speak. Civic, the ideal of aim of the Roman school system to train the students for public service. Cicero, Tacitus, and Quintilian. They recognized that ideally educated man was an orator who uses learning for public services. So types of education: speech training, civic training, literacy education. So in speech training, public speaking or oratory and debate were given much attention. While in civic training, it was coupled with speech training with the expectation that a good orator would use his talent for public service. Literacy educated. This is the process of many inscriptions and epitaphs on tombs, election posters, shop identifications, and public notices indicated that there was a good literacy educated. While vocational education, it was for the great mass of the people because there was no universal education. So, contents of studies under this Roman educational system. From age of 7 to 10, boys and girls entered the literature. Reading, writing, calculation, arithmetic was primitive. At the age of 10 to 16, Grammar was the chief study with the inclusion of literature, prose, poetry, and language. Geography, history, mythology, and natural sciences were studied superficially only to enable students to recognize such allusions in literature. Then, by the age of 16, boys entered the school of rhetor. It includes debates on points of Roman law and moral principles, especially ethical and cultural content, history of one's country, music, arithmetic, astronomy, geometry, and philosophy. Athenaeum, professional course. In the university, applied science and professions such as law, medicine, architecture, and mechanics were in the curriculum. So the methods of instructions under the Roman educational system is the memorization, public speaking, and drill and writing exercises. In memorization, used in the elementary level, the people sat on the floor and rested their tables on their knees. They were taught from the dictation, and writing was on wax with stylus. So letters of the alphabets were memorized, and pronunciation, enunciation, and self-expressions were also taught. While in public speaking, strong emphasis in all types of the rhetorics, declamation, eulogies, funeral oration, exhortations, and extemporaneous speeches after lectures on articulation, modulation, emphasis, and the like. Then the other one is the drill and writing exercises. Um, Secondary level, so it was been taught to secondary level. Intensive drill on grammatical elements such as part of the speech, syntax, pronunciation, and the like. More practice in writing paragraphs, themes, compositions, and poetic expressions. Some methods of instruction. The schools established in Rome did the fees of the students support private schools. Thus, only the children of the well-off families could attend school. So, Quintilian advocates the establishment of a public school system. Vespasian was the first emperor who ordered the payment of the salaries of the Greek rhetoricians. Kaning mga rhetoricians, mao ni mga gitawag nga teachers as of now. So, Emperor Trajan provided for scholarship for poor students. Antonius Pius exempted teachers from paying taxes and military services. Marcus Aurelius ordered the establishment of a salary scale for teachers. Hadrian started on paying pensions to retired teachers. So the outstanding contributions to education of the Roman to education and the civilization was their methods of organization, management, and administration. So it this is one of the outstanding contribution of the Roman educational system. Then it's constructed the organized education ladder, which probably became the forerunner of many ladderized educational systems today. Then civil law became the basis of the legal basis in many countries, including the Philippines. Katong democracy. Then Roman believed that there should be empathy in the teacher-pupil relations, and that teachers should be properly selected, even setting forth the qualities that a teacher should have. So, with this, I will end my report with this quotation: harness the power of connections. So, in this sense, you have to build or be captivated with the power of connection to your learners, or between the teachers and learners relationship. So I think that will be the end of my slides. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you can add me, or you can have your questions on my email down below. So I provided here my email, so if you have questions, you can ask me directly on my email. So thank you and good day.